Welcome to Stolen, the world's greatest eminent domain podcast. Legally, the government has the power to take your property, but most people don't know what to do when it actually happens. If you don't respond correctly, you could walk away with far less than you're owed. And when that happens, in effect, the government steals your property. Our mission is simple: protect property owners, make sure they get the compensation they deserve. The government will steal your property, but only if you let them.
Hey, welcome to Stolen, the world's greatest eminent domain podcast. And we are here once again talking about all things eminent domain, land condemnation, helping landowners figure out how to get the most money for their property. I am Chad Brown. I am your host, and I am here with my ever faithful co-host, Caleb Wheeler.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Caleb.
Hey, Chad.
So you're wearing a tie today?
I'm wearing a tie. I have to do real lawyer work here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I had so they've got to do some.
Yeah, you got recently married, right?
I did get recently married.
Yeah, you should let your wife pick your ties
I
out.
should probably do that.
I think that'd be better.
This is my lucky tie.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's lucky. That tie is lucky because no one else was going to buy it.
Nobody else would have bought it.
All right, very good. Here's what we're doing today. We're diving deep into the topic of pipelines. Pipelines, that's right.
Yes.
So we're looking at pipelines and a very specific type of eminent domain case where, by and large, today we're going to talk about natural gas pipelines. There can be other types of pipelines. We're going to talk about pipeline cases. What happens when a utility or a private entity comes in to run a pipeline through your property? We're going to look. We're going to kind of just go with a top 10 valuation issues episode where we're going to look at top 10 issues related to valuation. And then we're going to talk about stigma and the risks that people think they may have with a pipeline on their property. Then we're going to actually talk about the actual risks they have. So with that being said, how do pipeline cases, like where do they originate? Where do they come from? How do we end up talking about pipelines in the eminent domain context?
Well, pipelines essentially, so where they originate from. So, I mean, there's very few, if any, I can't think of any instances where a government owns a government entity owns a pipeline. Putin owns a pipeline, but that's different. Yeah. But there is.
If we open an office in Russia, I guess we can talk about
let's
that.
Let's not. So when it comes to these private utility companies that own these pipelines, a lot of times to facilitate bringing the product to private owners who need it.
Right.
They have to go across other people's property, other private entities' properties to get to that point, because we can't just beam up, Scotty, some natural gas in people's houses. It has to be ran there through a pipeline.
Okay.
I'm going to use this. I'm going to wipe my face off real quick because I'm too poor to buy a handkerchief. So there's that. So anyways, we oftentimes run, we see people running private utility companies running pipelines through private property to other people's homes so that they can be given the natural gas, oil, whatever it is, to heat their homes or cook their food, whatever.
So we're still under, it's got to be for public use.
Yes.
It's got to be just compensation. Public use is easy in these cases by and large.
Utility companies, by and large, are going to be found to be a public use, and obviously so, because you've got to have heat to make a home habitable. As a matter of fact, as a realtor, when I was doing real estate, when I was a practicing real estate agent, you couldn't call a home habitable unless it was able to be heated.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so this is very important.
Okay. So there's Natural Gas Act. There's actually a federal law that governs how these takings are supposed to happen.
Right.
So let's talk about let's get away from this. So let's just look at practically.
Okay.
So practically, we have a utility company. They decide that they're going to expand their service area, or they need to bring new service or whatever it is. So they get approval for the pipeline. It's going to have like a corridor. There's going to be a certain area that the pipeline's going to run. So let's just say we're residential property owner. Let's talk about a farm. I don't know. I think there's a bunch of examples that make a lot of sense with farms. So,
Sure.
so you're Farmer Brown.
Okay.
Farmer Brown's got his farm, and the pipeline's coming through.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 10 issues that come with valuation related to how is this person going to get just compensation. So I'm just going to give you the topic.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you, in your best effort, try to help us understand how that case is going to be assessed and reviewed.
Okay.
So let's start with before and after damages or severance damages. What is that about?
So severance damages, and again, we're talking about this. This is the federal rule for calculating just compensation. So when I hear just before and after damages or severance damages, I'm thinking federal rule, which is essentially going to include the permanent utility easements and the actual fee simple taking. Fee simple being what the property that's going to be theirs permanently.
Yeah.
So that's the property that you're no longer allowed to use. It's the federal government's or the utility companies or whoever's property at this point.
Okay. But typically what you're dealing with these are permanent utility easements.
Typically with a pipeline case, you're going to be dealing with a permanent utility easement. And I think we didn't mention this before, but I think it merits mention that in pipeline cases, you're dealing with essentially two broad categories. You're dealing with intrastate and interstate pipelines.
Okay.
Interstate is having pipelines that cross state lines,
Right.
lines. So those are regulated by FERC, okay, which is the Federal Energy Regulation Committee. Federal Energy Regulation Committee. I apologize, folks. I do speak a little fast at times. So with that being said, FERC certifies these companies and they run these pipelines across state lines, and those are federally regulated. But the federal law, Natural Gas Act is one, for instance, allows for these private utility companies to cross state lines to condemn property for the use of these utility lines.
Okay, but in that you're back to, I think we did a whole episode on permanent utility.
We did.
easements?
We did.
Or
We did.
Permanent. I always say public, but they're permanent.
Permanent utility.
They're
easements.
permanent.
They're often they're for the public, right? It's
But
public use.
they're permanent. So all the issues that go with permanent utility easements are going to come into play in these type cases.
Absolutely, regardless of whether or not it's a federal or state only pipeline.
Okay, so highest and best use, that apply?
Highest and best use definitely applies, because if you're running a corridor, and again, guys, just understand corridor is a fancy word for the area where the pipeline is going to be laid. Mm-hmm. So the corridor, if the corridor is on a piece of property that is zoned a certain, so you go through the highest. We did a podcast on highest and best use too, in which is legal permissibility, financial feasibility, all that stuff, right?
Right.
The four elements of highest and best use. If your property could meet that, then that pipeline could potentially destroy that highest and best use of that property. Okay, so it could be developed. Oh, now it can't be developed because you can't put a legally required road into it, because the road would have to go where the pipeline is.
So you're going to deal with this permanent utility easement, but in trying to create valuation, once again, we're back to very, very common concepts of highest best use of the property. So how it's valued is not based on its current use, but on its highest and best use. Very good. Let's talk about temporary construction easements.
Temporary construction easements in the context of a pipeline is, so when it comes to pipelines specifically, I think 75%, most pipelines, okay, are going to be underground.
Right.
Okay. Well, there's not going to be a group of prisoners out there with shovels digging ditches for these pipelines to go into. So with that being said, you're not going to have a chain gang out there digging ditches. You're going to have big equipment.
Right.
They're going to be digging these ditches very quickly, and they don't really care what's in the way, unfortunately. Now, I'm not going to sit here and disparage pipeline companies, because most of their agents and assigns, the construction workers they have out there, are certified out the wazoo. Yeah, these welders that work on these pipelines, they go through.
Is that a certificate out the wazoo?
Yes.
Out the wazoo is like
a lot of them. Oh, out the wazoo. This is more Southern parlance, folks. Out the wazoo are means a lot of. So when it comes to these welders, I'm just like, what would it, instead of Urban Dictionary, what should it be called?
I don't know. Probably the Redneck Dictionary.
Dictionary.
The Hillbilly Dictionary.
Yeah, I don't know. but there it is.
They're qualified.
They're qualified.
But let's look at
Highly.
that doesn't help people. So let's talk about from the client standpoint, though. One of the things you need to realize is if there's a tree there,
It's gone.
fence there,
Gone.
building there,
Straight to jail.
little.
Parks and
What,
Rec.
what if it's like what if like you're in a farm and there's like this is an area where you need fences to keep your cows in.
So yeah, I mean, if it's in a
Fence is gone.
the fence is gone, but it could. Okay, and we might be talking about this later. I don't know what your multiple points are in chronological order, but when it comes to fencing, if it's in the way of the temporary construction easement, it's most likely going to be taken.
But the point though is that because of the nature of digging pipelines, everything that's in the way of where that pipeline goes, by and large, gets destroyed.
It's got to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about this issue of access, or to use a fancy phrase?
I'm glad you bring it up because that's what I was
Go
alluding to earlier is the access issue. So you need a staging area where typically these permanent utility easements are going to contain a 24-hour access clause, which allows these utility companies to access these easements 24 hours, which is not a bad thing because if the pipeline for some reason does bust or does have a leak or whatever the issue may be, you want them to get in there and get it fixed. And these things do blow up, by the way.
Really?
Depending on what's carrying off, if it's carrying water, it's not going to have a fire explosion. But if it's carrying natural gas, oil, things like that, it can
blow up.
It can blow up.
And if it does,
you got a problem.
You want them to be able to get in and fix it.
You want to be able to get in there and fix it. Yeah. And if it's damaged your house in any way, you want to get a little compensation.
Yeah, but that's different.
It's a different issue altogether.
Okay, let's talk about this reality of pipeline cases, though, is often there's this issue of multiple lines or future line rights.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens with that?
So in the Fourth Circuit, just kind of alluding to a case in the Fourth Circuit, the Williams case.
If people don't know, the Fourth Circuit's North Carolina, South Carolina,
North
Virginia, Maryland, part of West Virginia.
Yeah. So the Fourth Circuit has said that each component of these valuations of these takings needs to be valued. So each component needs to be valued. So if you're looking at an easement and that easement contains language which allows for multiple lines, usually what that's going to mean is that they can enter into your property again, install a whole new pipeline without giving you further compensation because that compensation should have been handled at the first taking.
Yeah, because the reality is, sometimes in pipeline cases, like it's not your pipeline case; it's cases plural for you. And in practice, because they actually will run multiple lines or change lines or whatever they do. So the point though is that when you have this multiple line scenario, you need to understand you need to get compensated for it now.
Absolutely, do not waste that. And I will say this too. It's something for homeowners to be thinking about when it comes to this multiple lines issue or these staging areas. If you have lost a fence or any type of improvement on your property because of a pipeline being built, and then there's a multiple line clause in the easement that you sold, they can potentially take down the fence again. So you're losing twice,
right? If
not more times. So any improvements you put back on the property, if you don't know what the easement really says, you're not going to be able to plan adequately for improvements to be put back.
Yeah, but it gets to the next issue, and I don't want to belabor the point on this, but
Sure.
you need to be compensated for improvements that you lose through the taking.
Yeah.
But that goes without saying in any case.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough. Market stigma or perceived risk.
Market stigma. So when I was a real estate
Stigma, not stigmata.
Not stigmata. Stigma.
We're not dealing with the stigmata.
No.
Stigma.
Yeah, stigma. The stigma
of having a pipeline on your property.
The things about it that you don't like that might perturb future buyers or deter them from your property. So when it comes,
it's sort of like a cloud hanging over, like a cloud of natural gas explosion hanging over your property for all future purchasers.
Yeah. It's all connected, folks, because there's clouded titles. Okay, so it's all connected. But anyways, when it comes to the stigma, when I was
how about chemtrails?
Bro, okay.
A chemtrail thing? Never mind. They're not. That's not eminent domain.
Chad, where's my tinfoil hat? I'm just wondering where it went.
Okay.
But anyways, when it comes to stigma on your property, and not stigmata, we're talking about stigma. when it comes to the pipelines, when I was a real estate agent, property that had otherwise really nice property, I'm talking beautiful, but there had this weird line going right through the middle of it, through the trees, through the fields, everything. They had this line going through it where there was a pipeline, and they had like little flags sticking out. And that property had the hardest time selling. Why? Because if you wanted to raise cows in it, well, there's gauges sticking out of the ground on the property. So a pig launcher, for example, is a pipe. It's kind of like a upside down U, and it goes up and back down to the ground. And there's gauges and valves on this pig launcher that help them gauge or see what the pressure is. So GPMs and stuff like that. So it's hard to put cows in a pasture when you have this pipeline going through it that they can access 24/7, and the cows can potentially harm this pig launcher. And one of the common rules of an easement is you cannot inhibit the easement holder's ability to use that easement.
Right.
So a cow could do that, right? Other issues too, where you just feel like you don't have full access or control over your property anymore.
Right. But regardless, there's also stigma
About exploding.
of potential dangers and
Yes.
We'll get into that in just a second. So there's two more. I want to hit two more
Sure.
evaluation issues. One is this issue of environmental damage or drainage impact, because sometimes when they put these pipelines in, it actually changes the underlying structure of the property itself,
Right.
creating additional issues. So if that's a case where, by the placement of the pipeline, you're going to end up with like some sort of drainage issue, you got to get compensated for that.
You have to be able to plan for it, have an expert come out, look at it, and see what potential damages could be done.
The hydrologist.
A hydrologist. And
That's
a
right.
thing. It's a real thing.
If you don't know what we're talking about, there's a prior episode where we talk about hydrologists.
Hydrology is a fascinating study.
Water.
Of water, yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Access roads, staging issues,
Like I said
staging
earlier,
areas,
yeah.
access roads.
Right. Like I said earlier, like they're going to put in an access. Sometimes they'll have to buy or get from the homeowner an extra access road.
So the taking itself will have the necessity of an additional taking
That's right.
or additional easement of some capacity so that they have access to the
Right.
property.
And it's not uncommon to have takings kind of set in motion further takings,
Sure.
like to facilitate those takings.
Right. Sure.
So it's not necessarily that uncommon, but they will have to have the ability to access those pipelines on your property. It might require another road and put a gate up. If you have cows, you got to put another gate up, whatever. And that's stuff you can negotiate with them, but regardless, they're going to have it. So that's what to be thinking about.
So let's hop back real quick, because our wonderful producer Heidi is telling me
Is she
that
dinging us?
Yeah, she's saying we're close on time
Oh,
already.
no.
So there's the stigma, which, for example, I think there was a pipeline explosion maybe in Alabama a number of years ago where they actually could show that decreased property values of other properties that had pipelines for several years as that sort of hung around. So I don't want to get into this too deep, but the reality is that stigma or perceived risk can be accounted for in comparable sales analysis.
That's with any, yeah. And that's one of the things you learn as a realtor. Like, for example, we just got out of the Halloween, the Halloween season or whatever that's been recently or whatever. Homes that are supposed to be haunted, sometimes you have to disclose that even. Yeah. So that just kind of adds to this idea that stigma can be something that can decrease the value of a property.
Right.
And so this is one of those things where the home value can be devalued as a result of a pipeline being installed.
But the point, though, is that you have to prove
you got to prove everything.
You have to prove it. You can't just say, well, which is what the common property owner response would be is, well, now my property's not worth as much. Well, it may or may not be as worth as much. You have to prove it. So what are the actual risks? But there are actual risks associated with having a pipeline on your property. What are they?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we alluded to a lot of them already, but number one, the construction danger. So having the people actually out there to install it. If you have pets, animals, young children, if you have things on your property that could potentially get hurt by the construction process, because they will have heavy machinery out there digging ditches to put these pipes into it. It's going to probably be a couple-day process at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, falling into ditches, getting hurt. Number two, you've got leaks, which could leak into the soil or your water source. If you have a well, which could be a problem. You have potential explosion issues. That could be an issue, causing damage to other improvements on the property, or filling the air with just fumes and toxicity.
Of course, the problem with that is that the actual risks that come with pipelines often can't be compensated in the eminent domain action. They become negligence actions down the road.
Personal injury type actions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
call the ambulance chasers.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
They're good folks.
They're great folks.
They're fighting the corporate
Yes.
conglomerates that want to destroy our country.
That's right.
Even though they might be trying to improve it. Check out our episode on Kilo.
That's great.
Okay, so what's the final takeaway? So if you have property and there's a pipeline coming through, there's a pipeline project in North Carolina right now, I think.
Yeah. We're coming up.
Yeah, coming up. So what's the takeaway? What is bottom line? 2 sentences, if you're even conceivably possible, you can do anything in 2 sentences. What's the takeaway for people dealing with pipeline eminent domain?
Okay. Watch out for construction damages, severance damages, and I'm going to do a compound sentence. Okay. I'm going to do a compound sentence.
Comma
and research proper comps for just compensation.
Right.
Okay. So 1 sentence, compound, so technically 2, whatever. Go ahead.
But you've got to understand the actual damages.
You have to understand,
and you need to be aware that the presence of the pipeline in and of itself could affect your property value, but not on speculation. You got to prove it.
You got to prove it with comps.
Very good. All right, folks, that's all we got. Pipelines that come in through your property, you need to be compensated for them. Subscribe, watch the prior episodes. There's a bunch of good stuff. Highest and best use. There's a good episode on Kilo we just did.
And I'm in them. So there you go.
Yeah. Till next time, take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.